Hi everyone, Comic Book Reviewer here, this time reviewing on the Disney film Enchanted. Now, as you know, Enchanted is a 2007 musical fantasy romantic comedy film that was basically directed by Kevin Lima, who also helped co-directed The Prince of Egypt as well as Brave, and was also meant to feature Amy Adams, who also played Lois Lane in Man of Steel as Drizel. So the premise of the film takes place in the animated world of the fairy tale kingdom Andalasia, where we see how Drizel is set to marry Prince Edward, and we kind of see how Prince Edward's stepmother plans to prevent it from happening, and so able to trick Drizel into basically ending up in the real world, New York. And I think for the most part, I think when you do see Drizel entering into the world of New York, you can tell this is where she starts to see things a bit more like a little kid. Like, she's quick to kind of think everything's going to be like Andalasia, even though it's not. And again, this was also meant to be a reference and a self-parody of the whole Disney princess trope. And much like other Disney princesses, you do see how Drizel is maybe all this happy-go-lucky, kind of communicating with the animals, also kind of busting into a musical song number. And again, this is also going to show what would happen if a Disney princess was in a realistic setting. And I think when you do have Robert and his daughter Megan, I think they do work as perfect characters. You can tell Robert tries to be realistic with the situations, and you can tell does try to be the voice of reason to Drizel. And I think when you got his daughter Morgan, you can tell she does want things to work with Nancy, and you can kind of tell Nancy does care about Robert, but it's kind of clear that it's just that they don't really work too well together. And I think for the most part, I would say the film has a bit of a message with Drizel, about trying to see things differently and seeing how things work in the realistic world. And I think for the most part, I would say referencing the past Disney stuff makes sense, as yeah, it's joking with how kind of most Disney princesses will burst into song, will kind of have the typical Disney princess trope, like kind of meeting someone at first sight, sort of being rescued from a dangerous ogre, or so on. And I think for the most part, having Drizel kind of see the realistic things in the real world does actually fit the tropes. And I think for the most part, I think the film really does try to hit the realistic levels. Like Robert trying to be realistic with Drizel, and knowing that, yeah, sometimes not everything in a relationship is going to work. And I think when you also do have Nathaniel, who's meant to be the servant of Queen Nerissa, you can tell he starts to kind of see signs that Queen Nerissa has no concern for anyone. And I kind of give it credit that they don't do the whole sort of enforced redemption. You do actually see Nathaniel kind of questioning if Nerissa actually cares about him. And you can kind of tell he even starts to kind of realize that she doesn't really care about anyone. I think my only real complaint, I would say, has to be the final battle, because, yeah, I think when Nerissa turns into a giant dragon as a reference to Maleficent's dragon form in the Sleeping Beauty films, it does feel a little like they needed to throw in another evil stepmom, kind of evil villain reference, and it just feels a little anticlimactic how it stopped too quickly. I know as well that eventually we would get a sequel, Disenchanted, in 2022. And again, I think the film coming out in 2007 made sense. It was just Disney trying to put itself back on the right path. It was also trying to kind of fix things and try to not do any more direct-to-video sequels, not trying to kind of make lackluster films, but trying to do something different that I think people were expecting Disney to do, despite the fact that back then Disney had a few good stuff. It was just important to put it back on the right path. So I think the film still deserves thumbs in the middle. It's an okay Disney film, but again, it does the parodies well. It brings back past Disney princesses, actresses, and you know what they're trying to do with a good story. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.